On Monday, April 30th, several hundred people attended the National Prayer Breakfast in the nation's capital. The leadership dinner, of course, was held on that night before the breakfast. The speaker was Nazinin Afshin-Jam Mackay. Born in Tehran, Iran, raised in Vancouver, she now calls Ottawa and New Glasgow, Nova Scotia home. The wife of Defence Minister Peter MacKay touched all our hearts. Her first book came out yesterday, The Tale of Two Nazanins, published by HarperCollins. She talked about the life-saving campaign that inspired it.
I've always done humanitarian type work, but it wasn't until I heard the story of another Nazanin, Nazanin Fatehi, a teenager in Iran who was condemned to execution simply for defending herself against a few men who tried to rape her. She had stabbed one of the men and he later died in hospital. So instead of being considered a victim of attempted rape, she was tried as a criminal. And that's what led me to learn more about human rights abuses taking place in the country of my birth, in Iran, and the legal discrimination that women face, and just the abuse that even children face. And so when I heard about her story, I felt compelled to start a campaign to save her life, and a petition which grew that then helped me to approach government officials and conduct rallies and approach the UN on this subject and march into the office of the woman who was in charge of the empowerment of women at the UN and come with boxes of petition and say, I'm coming into your office with hundreds of thousands of people as an army who are behind this woman, and we really need to take action. So after a year long of campaigning, that was the pressure that was needed to pressure the head of judiciary in Iran to give her a stay of execution and new trial, and in that trial she was exonerated of murder charges and she was released.
Nazanin lives beauty with a purpose, using her blessings to aid humanity and glorify God. As a social activist, she is politically nonpartisan. Before fleeing Iran when she was just a baby, her father endured 100 lashes and torture, narrowly escaping execution. Iran has the highest number of executions worldwide per capita. Nazanin today is president of the Stop Child Executions organization. A heart of compassion was awakened very early in this woman.
I felt the calling at a very young age. I always knew God wanted to use me as a voice for the voiceless. I didn't know exactly what path He would lead me on, but I knew that He had something special planned for me, that He wanted me to help others. Because I think, first of all, He instilled a very sensitive heart in me. I'm very emotional, very sensitive to the plight of other people. If I see anybody in pain or suffering, I automatically want to do something to alleviate that suffering or pain, take that away, because I internalize it, I feel it for myself, so it's almost like I just want to shed it away. I want to say, let's be done with this. And so
you probably have the gift of mercy.
I don't know what it is. I just know I feel it very deep in my heart. And in grade 9, I wanted to become a nun and do some missionary work or spread the love of God. And I later learned that you don't necessarily have to become a nun to be of service. And so I chose a different path. Obviously, I'm married now. But it was probably in those early years that I really felt a connection to a life of service in some capacity. I was with my Sunday school class. We went to the Vancouver downtown east side to feed the homeless and to work at a soup kitchen for a day.
Very rough area.
Yeah, it is a very rough area. A lot of, I'd never seen it as a child like that, people in, tattered clothes, or people that looked, that they had experienced some hard life. And at first I was a little bit afraid, but as we served the people and I saw how happy they were and how grateful they were, and made me feel good inside. And then it wasn't until I returned home later that evening that it really dawned on me that the discrepancy between the rich and the poor, the people that we had just served, and then the community where I lived in, where people had an abundant, supply of everything they wanted. And so those early years were very difficult for me to understand why there was that difference. And although as a child I couldn't quite grapple with what I was seeing or feeling, I felt very emotional, and I used to cry and ask my parents why. I would always ask the question, why? And then it was later in, I guess, junior high and high school that I thought, well, maybe I can help do something about it, and that's why. And I started a global issues club and started to get quite active in the school and wanted to gain my own skills and leadership skills to try to one day help those people that I had seen as a child.
Nazanin's strong faith foundation began when her mother came to know Jesus Christ.
Her father was a very well-known general and humanitarian and judge in Iran, and so he had this amazing library full of books, philosophies, different religions, and my mother was quite an avid reader, and she loved reading his books, and one by one would finish them off. But the most special book she came across was the Bible, and she read the Bible through and through, and she was maybe 13 or 14 years old, and she said to my grandfather, she said, "Who is this man that thinks exactly like me?" And that's when he said, "Oh, well, this is Jesus." And she said, "Can I follow him?" And he said, "Yes, of course, you can become a Christian if you'd like." And it wasn't until she moved to Italy for 8 years that her faith grew, and she learned more about kind of more the religious aspects and converted to Christianity, and then raised my sister in the church. And I had some special moments growing up as a Christian, and I was actually baptized a little bit later in life because we had fled from Iran to Canada and making that new transition and getting close to a church and community setting. I was probably 7 or 8 years old when I was baptized, and then I think the year after I had my first Holy Communion. And at that moment, I automatically felt the Holy Spirit. My heart was set on helping those most vulnerable in the world, and I think it's at those very early years that I experienced quite a bit.
Well, Jim, I'm not the first person to refer to Nazanin as an Esther in a place, Queen Esther, in a place of power and great influence for such a time as this. And I don't need to tell anybody that that can be a very hostile arena up there. So let's be praying for this lovely woman. Look for her book, released yesterday, The Tale of Two Nazanins. And please do be watching for our full visit with Nazanin from the National Prayer Breakfast in Ottawa. It will be airing next month on 100 Huntley Street.